If there is a message for us today, I believe it is to learn to live from our heart in love. These short lessons, hopefully, will help to inspire you to live with purpose, love passionately, and inspire others. We are the change agent our world needs. I'm Helen Taves. Step into the river today with me to explore the mysteries of God. They are not hidden from us, but for us to discover. And I just want to say welcome to everybody. We've already been chatting for half an hour. It's hard when to stop and when to start these days with everyone on. And I just appreciate your input so much. Thank you for sharing that. I love what is happening. Well, certainly in our community and communities that I speak to that are like-minded. And I heard a beautiful analogy. I'm going to use it as an analogy from Brooks Agnew. Brooks Agnew is a podcaster. He's also, if you ever want to read a real good series, he has four novels that are just exceptional. We read them all in our book club years ago, and he's written. I just really love watching him because he's smart. He just knows stuff, Some people are just fun to watch. Anyway, he says this story about how surfers. Now I'm hoping I'm going to use it well because I'm using it as an analogy to and I know I've shared this with you before, but many, many years ago, as I had come out of, the Jesus movement, the charismatic renewal, and the word of faith, and, just goes on and on and on. And I loved all of it. I absolutely loved all of it. And it felt to me like they're waves, just we had this with this wave and then this wave, and we're just sort of riding these waves. And I said, Father, I don't want to miss the next wave. I don't know what it is, but I don't want to miss anything that you're doing. I'm calling them waves and everything, and that came up again with a conversation that I was having with Father, and I realized that I wasn't really sure what was going on. We are all using these words like shift, and we're feeling things, and awakening. I don't know all the words that there are. So, and I felt, but none of them have really sat with me and said, yeah, this is what's happening. And Brooks gives this great analogy, and it's about surfers and how they catch the wave. And he said, what surfers do is they sit on their board. Anybody here say, I told this to Bob, and he had other things. My son is a surfer. He's not on yet. Anyway, so surfers will sit out on their boards, and we've all seen them. They're beautiful. They're tanned, and it's beautiful sunny weather. And you'll see them, and they'll just have their feet dangling over the sides. And all of a sudden, you'll see them hop on, lie on their board and paddle like crazy because they see this swell come along, and they keep paddling, but the swell doesn't do anything. It just takes them for a certain distance, and then they're back to sitting on the board again and with their feet. And Brooks was saying, but these surfers that are doing that are getting exhausted because they don't know how to see the wave. And he said, what you have to do is realize it's not what's on the surface that's happening. It's not what you see all the time that is, where the action is. He said surfers know how to read the water, and they know what the tides, like the rip tides and the currents do. So he said, for instance, if you're standing on a beach, like in water, close to the beach, if a riptide comes in, that riptide can take you out pretty strong if you don't know to, lean into the beach area and get out of it. And he said, that's what surfers do. The good surfers will be out there and you'll see them and they'll just be paddling with their feet in the water and sitting, and it looks like they're doing nothing. But what they're doing is they're feeling what's going on. They feel the current. They sense what's going on. And he said, when they start sensing it, it's not on the surface. It's underneath their surfboard. It's underneath. It's in the mysterious, in the mystic places. And that's my word, not his. And he said, and then they'll look back and they'll recognize a swell. They'll recognize but what's coming along behind them will be quite different, because they know what's happening underneath them. We can say, and in them, because they're recognizing it. What they do is they feel that, they know it. It's like an intuition, but more. And then they see what's going on. When they see that come in, then they will get on their board, paddle with it to a crest, and then that they'll start riding it, and they can have amazing rides. When I listened to that, I thought, Father, I've been sitting with it for a few weeks now. I said, is that what's going on here? Are there communities like ours that are sitting with our feet in the water? We have these beautiful conversations like this one. I love Sharina. It is about love. It is about, it's about family. It's about knowing how to use what we are learning, and that is, there's so many times that we've been learning things and excited about things, or you go to a conference and you're excited and whoop-de-doo, all of that. And I'm not putting anything down. I'm just saying that's what we've done. And we've had that buzz, and then we come back home and, well, what's next? Well, I'm sort of feeling, after I listened to this analogy of the surfers, is that we're sitting there and we're having these senses, like the feet in the water, about the currents changing, and we're beginning to feel those currents. We are beginning to, but the neat thing is, we also know that when we see what's happening, we will move with it. Sharina, you're moving with what you're learning, and through all the stuff, right? Through all the things that, through your job, through the person you were working for, through the persecution of your family, and through so many things, Sharina, you have kept your focus. You're staying the course. You're living in love and operating in everything you know. And that's what we have to do. I think we're pretty close to starting to paddle with the wave. Like this is a foreshadowing of it. Just the little things, seems like little things that we're doing, practicing being together. Well, when were we doing that before? We weren't. Now it's become a reality. It's actually something we can talk about. We're beginning to paddle out to that wave. And I don't think it's going to be long before, like those surfers, we're standing up on that wave, and then that wave carries us. So did I make any sense at all? Because I'm not a surfer. It's actually I'm pretty athletic and love sports and have been fairly adequate with most of them, but I couldn't get up on a surfboard to save my life. I mean, really, that I admire those people that can jump up and catch the wave. Wow. Okay. Well, I said everyone's okay.
Someone was asking for the book. You had mentioned a book in our chat time, and that is Betty would like to get the title for that.
Yeah, I'm going to get that, and where will I put it? I'll put it on the river, in the next couple of days, okay? I think it's Sunrise, Sonrise. Can somebody look up in Amazon if there's a book called Sunrise? I would recognize them. I think they've written two books.
I got it.
So if you found it,
Yeah.
what's the author?
There's 2 books here.
Yeah,
Vicky Watson. Is that it?
I don't know.
There's a Neil Kaufman as well,
Oh, yes. Yeah.
or Barry Neil Kaufman. That's an older one though.
Oh, Vicky Watson. I think this is a series. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Barry Neil Kaufman, Sunrise. And
Does
it's about, I'll tell you.
Okay.
Author of 12 books on option process, the Sunrise program, including the bestseller. Wait a second.
Oh.
Hmm.
Yeah, a
The
lot of these.
miracle continues, as well as to love is to be happy.
Okay, the miracle that's probably the book then.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sunrise.
Yeah, it is in the incurable case of autism. Yes.
Oh, good, okay,
So that's what it looks like.
perfect. I'll pin you just a minute. Pin. Oh, there you, oh, look at that. Sunrise. What a beautiful boy. Okay, thanks, Gina. That's
Mhm.
awesome. All right. Okay, well, tonight, I'm gonna pin myself here. I said last week that I really wanted to open up a conversation on 2 things. On the looking at the terminology for inner child and sacred self. Because during the event at Cedar Creek, I actually had a number of people talk about or ask about inner child. Like, what is it that we're actually talking about when we talk about inner child? And I know probably if we just went around the Hollywood squares here, there'd be many of us on the same page, and others have other ideas of what that is. I'm not going to, I don't feel that I want to go into a study type of explanation on it. What I want to do is sort of address the terminology and actually how I use it. Not that I'm the bottom line, so don't say this is the only way to look at something, but I feel sometimes that we get sort of lost in this in the psychological babble of what things are. And then what we do is we start focusing on negative things rather than look at an overall picture. And there's lots of different terminologies that are used, like higher self, like lower self. So that could be higher when you think about your higher self, that you think you've got loftier ideas or understandings, or above average something, or your lower self, meaning that you're operating out of your ego, or that chart that we talked about from Dr. Hawkins about the under the 200 points and down, where you're talking about shame and anger and guilt, that all the negative things and all the things that are constructed actually by us. We're finding that these things are constructs. They're not things that just simply happen to us, and we have no defense or anything against them. We're finding that we participate in whether we are engaging in these things or not, or making them real in our life. Excuse me. So when I personally use the term inner child, I'm looking at it like, you could use the term, your lower self, or not exactly ego, but just things that are childlike. if we're not careful, they'll be childish, right? But there are aspects of ourselves that really wouldn't be a bad idea to think about, that there is an inner child within us, if we'll look at it in a positive way. I find that many people have, and I am saying many people, because over the years, this has sort of been a thing that we've discussed. In psychology or psychotherapy, the concept of an inner child refers to a part of our psyche that retains memories and emotions and experiences from childhood. Most of the people that have in the past come to me have brought negative things and trauma in with it. Very few times do we think of our inner child as joy and peace and complete abandonment to life and excited. And it's that kid that ties the tea towel around his neck and thinks that they can fly, or that has the twig in his hand and he slays the dragon, or the little girl that has the tea party and she doesn't need any cakes or cookies or anything. She can tell you what they all taste like and pour your cup, and those things are real. Well, those things I like, and I like to think about, that we have within us, that even though every single cell of our body does not exist from the time we were little, there isn't one part of us that has that in us now. But I like to think that we still do, that we still have the playfulness, that we still have the joy, that we have the ability to laugh. And I know that there are a lot of people that have been traumatized as children, and that there are situations in their life. I am not uncompassionate to those situations. We actually all have them. The problems that we get into is when those are our focus or our excuse for anything today. Because the reality is you can't do anything about them. You can recognize them, you can deal with whatever's in your life, but you can't do anything about them. What we can do is that we can look to the things that bring us into enlightenment, into love, and into peace, and into joy. And what I'm personally finding out is, if I will look at those things in my life, if I will focus on the possibilities, rather than look back and say, well, I am this way because my mother put my diaper on backwards, I don't know, or something happened. And again, you know what, it is important to say trauma that has happened, we don't have to live there. We don't have to live there. So when I think of the term inner child, I think about it as actually very positive. If we stopped once in a while and we look through a child's eyes, if you've had children, or some of you have grandchildren, I would think that having grandchildren would just be the ultimate, because not only have you seen your children see things really simply and lovely, but now you're seeing it again. You've matured, hopefully. We grow up, and then now you see the next generation as they discover that beautiful child wonder. And I think we need to look at our inner child and realize that we have that capacity. What is that? The capacity to be joyful and peaceful and loving, that we don't have to hesitate. We can throw ourselves at each other and hold each other and hug and all those things that a child would do. We would laugh more. We would laugh at silly things that maybe we don't anymore. Children are figuring things out all the time in the course of their day because they don't clutter themselves up with the things that we do as adults. The adults bring in the yeah, but have you considered this? Kids don't. They go with their intuition. They know it can happen, and unless an unless an adult intervenes, they would fly. They would fly. It's like that little boy that I've told this story a number of times. This little boy who has a baby sister and asks his parents if he can be with his baby sister by himself. And this little boy is very rambunctious and it can be unpredictable. And the parents said yes, but what they did was they stood outside the door in case they needed to intervene with their son. But what they saw amazed them, because they saw a very gentle boy come up to the side of his sister's crib and lean over very gently and whisper in her ear and said, "Baby, tell me what Father sounds like. Tell me what God sounds like. I'm beginning to forget." And I love that story because that tells me a lot about us, right? And I don't want to be the adult that forgets what the voice of God is, or voice of our Father. Imagine if we didn't rationalize or reason those things out of kids. That if because what you focus on enlarge, we know that, right? So what if we focused on the voice of God and never let it go? Where would we be today? Where on earth would we be today? Children, yeah. If we like the concept of tapping into our inner child, we could consider having a more of an open mind. If there are children in your life, spend more time with them, or spend more time being like a child. I think that's one of the things I love the most about Ed, is not that he is childish, but he's very childlike at times because he has fun. He has fun. He just has fun. No reason, no when I married him, I always tell people Ed does not have a calendar and he doesn't know what days of the week mean, because the rest of the world thinks that Saturday and Sunday are those days that you do stuff, like you go out and you date and things like that. Well, he starts Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. He doesn't know that you're only supposed to have fun on weekends. And I think that's brilliant. I mean, what's not to fall in love with there? I think we stop looking at old photos and have you ever, we need those old photograph albums back, the ones that sit on the coffee table that you can just sort of open and remember. I know we have our phones, but I can't find anything on that anyway. But things of your childhood that brings back good things. And why are we not spending more time doing what we really enjoy? If you have to, even the God stuff. I can remember for so many years we were trained. We have to get up in the morning and spend time with God. You have to read, then you have to do this and this, and you have to pray. And that was so regimented. And it got to a point, if you didn't do that, you felt really guilty. It's like there were just a lot of, if you don't do that, you felt guilty. Now, looking in my life, I do all those things and more just because. And I don't have to do any of them. And sometimes I do none of them, quite frankly. Sometimes I do. But when I'm involved with whatever it is, I'm enjoying it. Do what you love what you do. And that sort of really resonates. Being playful. and in creativity. I know Gina does pottery. Gina's creative all the time. Gina is creative all the time. That's why she's so good at what she does and so free. And she'll do pottery. I don't think that there's ever a time where we've thought about something in just dreaming it. We can do that. I thought, yeah, we can, but you need a Gina in her life to remind you sometimes. But then she's got all these grandchildren, so she thinks like a child. There you go. Not childish, childlike.
It's just that I haven't grown up yet. That's
Well,
all.
that too. Yeah. You look taller. Anyway,
That's why I'm not so tall.
that's right. Anyway, so when in anything that I'm doing, when I think about that inner child, I think of it in the purest form. And so I don't go looking for problems in it. Anyway, I've had no training in all this, and I know that I might be missing a great big thing on the but I should know this, but all I know right now is I like the thought of having an inner child and everything good that child does. And I know I told you the testimony of when this is an in the spirit testimony, when I was sitting and this child jumped up in my lap, and I asked the Lord who that was, and he laughed at me and he said, "That's you." And so having met my inner child, and having, I feel like, that I feel like there's joy attached to it. So I just wanted to say that. And so if I don't understand, more, and I'm willing to learn, that's sort of where I'm positioned with that inner child. Now, I'm looking here. I had a whole bunch of things I was going to say, but I'm not, because I'd really like to hear about you guys more. Your sacred self. And to me, I can use the term higher self, and everyone understands what that means. Higher self, though, is like ascension. When we think ascension, we think going up higher, don't we? We are ascending. But when you think of the term ascension for royalty, when it says royalty is ascending to the throne, that's positional. And so that's how I feel about the term sacred self. I prefer it for me personally. I prefer using that about myself because I like the word sacred. Now that's a difficult thing, right? I just like the word sacred. Sacred to me says that this is important and I'm going to set it aside because to me, there's inherent divinity or sanctity that exists with sacredness. And I don't use it for myself because of religious reasons. When I say it, I feel myself putting myself in a place that is dedicated, that is sanctified. I don't know if that's making much sense. It also makes me go inward. To think of myself as sacred makes me go inward rather than upwards and outwards, because so much of our lives have been striving for things outside of ourselves, right? We need help with something, we will go to the medicine cabinet, we'll go to the doctor, we'll go complain to a friend, we will go to a psychologist, whatever. None of those things are bad. It's just that when I think I'm going to tune into my sacred self, I go then inward to where the whole thing is happening, because I'm learning to establish myself in the kingdom within. And in that place, there's peace. In that place, there is nothing missing, nothing broken, And when I go there, I personally set myself apart, not from, but to. I set myself apart unto God within. So these terms are I know they're personal, and they're just not right or wrong. They just are what they are in meaning for us. The concept of sacred self, as I relate it, is that my life positions in Christ consciousness. When I say it, it just sort of automatically does that. I see the plumb line. I see living from resurrection realities. And I see the sovereignness of my personal quest. And I see myself as sovereign. When I use the term for myself, then I don't let go of my sovereignty easily. I have that realization that I am that I am. And that's it. The end, that's all. And I don't want to move from that. So therefore, I'm not going to. Because my sacred self transcends boundaries of time, space, and individual identity. It is not confined to any limitations of the physical world, but it encompasses a much broader and interconnected reality. Whereas a higher self, I don't know how high to go, but my inner self comes within. My sacred self is deeply connected to the source of all existence, God. And it's this connection that creates oneness with all living beings and the cosmos. When I think of my sacred self and I think of other living beings, I don't think of you as, well, I wonder if you're born again. I wonder if you know God. I wonder if you fit in a nice package that would whatever. When I live from that place, it's all living beings. And it's the whole cosmos, and it's a newer relationship with the trees. Like, you guys have got me talking to trees. What can I say? It all matters. A sacred self embodies authenticity and inner truth. I feel like I am more real dealing with myself on the inside, knowing that there's an inner truth, and that if I am not operating in that inner truth, I will be corrected. When I think of high and up and out, and it goes religious for me, and I think, well, where can I find it? But I establish that inner self more and more and more and deeper when I just the word sacred, just the word that sets me apart to God. It aligns my values. I don't think that it's not like I lost track of them or didn't believe them, but when I align with those values like love and compassion and wisdom, and I just feel like there's more of a direct purpose and meaning. When I connect into that inner essence, I actually transcend the ego. I am more aware of my egotic patterns. Is that even a word? And I have no limitations. And when I think of myself as sacred and I go inward, I have a greater self-acceptance and fulfillment of myself. And that is not selfish. That's really okay, you know, because it's kind of nice to be at peace with yourself. When I say it and it's on the inside, I'm not comparing it to anything or anybody. It just is in me. And the sacred self provides a deeper sense of meaning and purpose to life for me when I do that. Going within, as I'm doing that more and more, you can only really engage in these things in meditation. You know that this isn't something you can learn by having somebody tell you. You could listen to what I'm saying 100 times and not get it. But if you start taking it apart for yourself And then being mindful of, oh, I like this, I like that. No, I don't need that. Putting it together and then just spending time and resting in those places. There's no wrong way to meditate, by the way. Just rest and breathe and go inward. And you'll find you'll start changing, you'll start having your own patterns and your own definitions, and it just works. It just works. And by, you start to recognize the interconnectedness, right, of all beings when you're in that place. Because in that place, we cultivate compassion and empathy. And one of the things I just love listening to Serena today, because I'm doing what you're saying too, Serena. In the early mornings, it's still dark out, and I can just sort of, put the hood over my head or put quiet music on. And in that place, I can be anywhere. And in that place, that just like Serena, you can hold the face of the people that you love. There's some places I go all the time, and I go to a bedside because I know where they are, and I just speak whatever seems to be needed at the time. And you don't tell people all the time. This is also a private journey. A sacred journey is very private. I've been practicing just like Gina and Karen. I love that practicing. I'm believing to show up. I actually did it. Was it this morning or the morning before? Susan, I was in your breakfast nook there and your kitchen making tea. We seem to be on this tea thing. Doesn't anybody drink coffee anymore? And that's fun. That's fun. Your sacred self does those kind of things. And nurture them. Nurture mindfulness, nurture meditation, nurture self-reflecting. Like, because it's not bad to look at your life in introspection. It does when you start beating yourself up, but there's nothing wrong with saying, I can change that. I can do this. Hey, I can love more, whatever it is. You'll start aligning your own self with your spiritual values and your dreams and in your visions. So my sacred self, I wrote this down, represents the essence of who we are beyond the physical realm and the ego. By cultivating awareness of this inner direction, I can experience profound growth, meaning, and fulfillment in our lives. Embracing sacred self is not only enriches my personal journey, but it fosters great compassion, harmony, and peace in the world. When I started with this modality for myself, it is not a difficult thing to think that I can actually bring peace, whether I go there in person or whether I send it. And sometime we'll have a testimony time of how these things are happening, because I know, and I you know what I think it is? It's that surfer that's sitting on the water that's feeling the currents. And we're feeling the currents starting to change, and it's not quite drawing us out anywhere, but we're feeling that water. It looks really smooth and cool on the surface, but we're feeling that tide changing. And as we're feeling it changing, we have that courage to go into places. And here's the neat thing. It doesn't matter if anybody in the whole world is doing it. That is the place of your secret indeed, or your sacred self. It really doesn't matter, because it's such an amazing place to be. And I don't think you could get me out of there now. So those are my terminologies for inner child and sacred self out of conversations that seem to be rising up a lot in a spin around us. And I would really love to know how you guys are doing with this. So I'm going to put us back on gallery view so I can see the Hollywood squares. you know, this might not have been oh, hi, Gina. It might not have been earth shattering, but it's a really, they're two really, really great places to get to. And that's my story. I'm sticking with it. Gina.
Well, I think it's earth shattering because it's something people don't think about.
Hmm.
And when we start thinking about stuff, it becomes earth shattering because it takes us out of, it shatters our earthliness,
Mhm, mhm,
right?
mhm.
And when I was first sort of thought about my sacred self as my higher self, and I too like the sacredness of it. Because, you know, I grew up in the Catholic Church and it's a very sacred place. There was these sacred
It
spots.
is.
But it was important to me to have it. I mean, I even had a little, you know, prayer table and a Bible that was in Italian. Don't ask me, I couldn't read it. And a, you know, a little crucifix hanging in this scary Jesus, Mary, and Joseph statue that glowed in the dark, and you know, hosts from the nuns and stuff, and a rosary. I didn't know what to do with it. Just sort of pretty. I don't know what. And I had this like shrine
Mhm.
because it was a sacred thing. I didn't know what all that meant, and it didn't matter. It was just my little spot. You know, I was 8. What do I know? So, but I think it's important because it does shatter our earthly way, right? So I think it's earth shattering. So thank you. But when I started thinking about my sacred self, I got like an acronym. Well, what exactly is that? It's not the scary Jesus, Mary, and Joseph that glows in the dark. It's not the rosary. It's not the Italian Bible that can't read. You know, it's not a place. It's not a little nook in your bedroom. You know, whatever. What is it? And so, you know, just for my own self, S, sacred, was secreting myself.
No.
A, apart in awakening and awareness. C, creatively. No other word there. R, remembering and resonating. E, my energy and my essence. And D, of my divinity and my dream. So that's a sacred self to me. And there's a lot there because there's a lot there. But for me personally, it was, you know, doing the inward something and understanding what the sacred actually meant and what the sacred of me is.
Mhm.
So that was my little acronym to just sort of, I don't, you know, memorize it or whatever. I just had to spell it out for myself. And I do mean that in a real way of spelling,
Mhm.
because I'm going to spell much differently than what I talked about what spelling actually is in the world. I'm spelling the greatness. I'm spelling the sacred, right? So yeah, that's what sacred self is to me. An inner child is who I really, really, really am. And I mean, we learn all this stuff and we turn into these adults, and I never, ever, ever wanted to do that. So I've tried to stay, you know, like a kid, and actually, frankly, have been criticized for it because, oh, well, that's, you know, you shouldn't do that, and you shouldn't do this, and that's inappropriate, and blah, blah, blah. So I don't care, whatever, because I'm not growing up. The end. I'm gonna stay my inner child self because that's who I really, really am. So that's what inner child and sacred self means to me.
So Gina, why didn't you just say at the very beginning, I can share this. And you just summed it all up. It's, well, even better. That's so
Um,
good.
Well, because it was a sum up. That's why. We
It's
needed to
so
hear,
good.
we needed to hear the body of it all.
I love that. I love it. I wrote it all down. I love the inner child is who I am. I am the inner child. That
Yeah.
says it all, says it all.
Well, it's
Thank you.
interesting too, you know, when you go into a sentence or you spend time with Father or you're somewhere in
Mhm,
some place that you don't know and you know you're there,
mhm, mhm.
I can always do whatever I want. Like it's never, I never think about, oh, well, can I climb this tree? Like, is anybody gonna care? Or can I climb the tree? Yeah, I can climb the tree. I can fly. I can do all sorts of stuff.
I know.
And it reminds me of being a kid.
It's really true. It's really, let's not lose that inner child who I am.
Mhm. And I do pottery because I used to play in the mud and
There
make
you
stuff
go.
and wish it was, um, gonna dry into whatever it is I made it into, and it never really did. But
You're still
I've always
playing.
loved it. Yeah, I'm still playing in the mud. Yeah.
That's so good. So good. Thanks for sharing. Todd and Elizabeth.
All right, sorry, it took a while to get the mouse over to the mute. So I am channeling my inner child right now and cheating off the cute girl that sits next to me in class. Because Elizabeth, I don't know, 2 nights in a row, read me the exact same thing. She was so excited about it out of she's like, I can't get past the first 2 pages of this book. And then she started reading it to me the second night. And I said, this is exactly what you read to me last night. And that's how my brain works. I'm like, I've already heard this.
Mhm.
And then today I'm at work and I'm like, oh man, now I'm doing it. She got me, but I can't remember exactly what it says, but I'll tell you how it works for me is this is not an easy time to be in corporate America. And I don't have to tell anybody that at any job. And there's a lot of people that are in my sphere of influence, which I'm their leader, right? And we just got back our feedback survey on how they think we're doing. And that's the happy people don't usually comment. Let me just put it that way. So you almost want to break open a bottle of wine to read the comments, but they're coming. And it's one of those weeks and leadership is like, what are we going to do about this? How are we going to change this? And it's like, some of the changes are literally at the United States and Western, even the Canadian employees, it's cultural. It's not the company. It's not their boss. It's probably not even the company policy. It's cultural. But they've turned from government to companies to help solve that. And that's hard for me until I remember who I am. So when Elizabeth does the Christological profiles, one of mine is, can't remember exactly what it is, but she said, you're designed for this exact purpose, to stand and take the blows and take the shots, take the arrows and stand and still, I never finished the sentence very well.
To be able to stand amongst that.
Yeah, to be able to stand amongst it and not fall apart.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not always easy, right? Because it's hard not to take it personally or feel like you're guilty. Because that was a lot of my childhood, was guilt and not wanting to disappoint. But what I did today was I found myself in a couple of situations where people were really hurting or they were really frustrated, or even I was really frustrated. And what came through on these pages that she'd read to me is basically what you're saying. You turn inward and then you flow out from there. Now, I can get that in my head. When she reads it to me, sometimes I'm like, that's easy to comprehend, hard to do. Because you said you have to experience it, you have to do it meditatively. And I have found, especially with so much exposure to y'all, today I was fixing to go into a situation that I knew might be rough. And so I just stopped myself and I said, no, I'm going in there with love. I'm going in there. I'm going into my heart to release and affect the atmosphere, not just be affected by it. And I had to do it twice. And then I had a little visit with a doctor at our wellness center. We have amazing doctor. And I was telling her about heart-brain coherence. And she said, you have to send me that. And I had told her about how there was a time when I was actually in a surgery, just in twilight surgery, talking to the doctor, and my heart rate was so low that the machines were going off. They thought a lead had come off, but it was just because I was so relaxed and I had just spent that time in heart-brain coherence. But I count those as victories, because today, if I just looked at it the way I normally would, I did come home tired. I have to admit that, but it would have been a rough day, but for the moments that I remembered who I am. And I teased enough to, my inner child is still kind of an immature, maybe a 12-year-old boy. Just enough to tease with love or pull a ponytail kind of thing. And I do that all the time. I'm known for it. But you asked what that looks like, what that is to me. I don't necessarily have the time or the practice of sitting and meditating as much as I probably should. And sorry, I just said should, as much as I'd like to where it's more automatic. But when I think of it in the moment, even in the midst of all that, I can pull it out and it actually does change.
Yeah.
I was able to really help somebody through a very tough time today. I'm not saying it was miraculous and their life is turned around, but I was able to take somebody that was going through such a tough time that they weren't making good decisions. And I was able to talk to them in a way. And I said, will you listen to some advice if I give it to you? Are you asking for help? Because I've been in a situation where I couldn't make good decisions, and I see some of that going on, and I don't want you to do that. And I said it in such a way that she was ready to receive. And I'll tell you, a week from now, her life will be better if she does some of the things that came through that.
Yeah.
Not just wisdom, but through the peace.
Yeah. 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 Wow. That's outstanding. That's outstanding. It's interesting that in the middle of you sharing, you changed your should to could. No, but seriously, just the awareness of that's what's happening, that on the surfboard, we're feeling that's where that change is, but we're going with that. We're going with it. And it's so amazing. And I think Todd, you are an amazing example of being a meditative person. So because I don't know if you were there for the lesson when I was teaching on meditation, but that was sort of the goal, was not meditation, but to become meditative, to be, and that does not mean not to meditate. I think that it's a gift to have that, whatever time it is, in the silence, in that place. But the gift that you're operating in now to be meditative is taking you through your day to day to day to day to day. And is it more or less, effective? It sure doesn't sound like it. It sounds like you're pretty spot on each moment that you're given. And I just think it's lovely, absolutely lovely. And I'm happy for the people that are in your life that you get to say, are you asking the question? Can I share my my story or what I have to say.
Wow.
You've got to come away feeling pretty good about that.
Yeah, and that's what I've got to count those times more than, wow, that was rough. That was rough. That's not going the way I would like to see it go. I had a boss one time who
Mm.
I told him, he said, "You sound down." I said, "I didn't get much done today." And he made me list out everything I had done that day. And he goes, "That took you 15 minutes to tell me everything you had done today. And you said you hadn't gotten anything done." He said, "You've got to count the accomplishment and the positives, but you just reminded me of another one yesterday. So thank you for that. You pulled this out of me."
Mhm.
This
Well,
group, you all.
but you know, too, how do we know when we help that one that isn't that domino effect? How do we know, right? Let's just keep stopping for the one, and somebody else can do the tallying up of how many good things that have been done.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Wow. That's really, really quite powerful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Rick and Karen.
Well, Todd, I just want to acknowledge you for stepping into love in corporate America.
Yeah.
It just, I always love listening to what um, your challenges are and how you walk it out. And thank God those people that are around you have you in their day. I think and I was thinking about and I wasn't going to say anything because I don't want to go back in time, but I was thinking about if I were back in the day in corporate America, knowing what I know now and what I hear you say, I would walk my day out much differently and how that would have looked. Um, but I'm not hanging on that. I'm wanting to acknowledge you and just say yay for what you're doing. It just really, makes my heart come alive. And thank you for that. I think, I'm listening to um, what you're saying, Helen, and I'm like, oh, I don't have a kid in me anymore. No, that's not that's not it at all. What came to me was I remember my mom's younger sister, my aunt, whenever I would get around her, she was always filled with joy and happiness. I don't know that I ever saw her down, um, even in the last days of her life. Um, and it was just amazing. And I never realized it until later years. It was amazing when I get around her. My mom was so serious. And I'd get around my Aunt Dorothy, and it would be like she would just be like a little kid with me. And it was so much fun. And so I've not thought about that in a long time. And I appreciate the fact that I thought about that tonight and how that I can step into that more because I too became serious unless I was around her. And so um, I thank you for um, what you shared tonight, that it opened that door back up for me. And maybe I could be a little more silly, fun. I don't know. I mean, it's like every time I go to a ball game and I sit in the stands, I'm like, put me in, coach. I'm ready. Let's go. I play my childhood out in those guys on the field and have a lot of fun with it. Ed probably can attest to that too. Of course, are you still playing, Ed? I don't remember. No.
You're on mute. You have to unmute. You need to unmute, Eddie. Eddie? Okay, let me see if I can unmute you. I don't think I can. Oh, there you are.
Yeah, no, I'm not playing anymore. I just play with Helen.
You're not physically on the field, but I bet mentally you are.
Many times, yes.
Yeah, yeah. And I think for me, it's, it's going back into my childhood and doing that. So that's how that fits for me. And I just mainly I wanted to acknowledge you, Todd. I just so much appreciate
Yeah.
what you're doing.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, there's a lot of wisdom and love in this room. And don't put yourself down too much there, Rick. You know, you don't have to be out on a field throwing something or hitting someone or chewing gum and spitting, you know, the things that these people seem to think are part of sport. You could just play. Start a competition. Anybody else play Kings? Do you play King? We play King's Cribbage, the two of us. And anyone play that game? If you play cribbage and you haven't played King's Cribbage, then we will call. Okay. Rick, thank you. Karen, keep tickling him. He'll keep laughing. Awesome. Cindy Lou.
Yeah, I want to acknowledge Todd as well, because a good friend just got walked out from corporate Canada 3 weeks ago for no reason at all. And he still doesn't know. They gave him the best reference, but they walked him out, didn't give him time to clean up files, nothing. And he doesn't know what happened yet. Anyways, and he had to sign a non-disclosure so he can talk to me because I'm a professional. But anyways, it's yeah, must be brutal out there. So back to the inner child. Now I have a spectrum that is very, very large in this department and have done a lot of research for myself personally and for clients. And the thing is, my goal is the definition of playfulness, joy, laugh, imagination, peaceful, all that stuff. My goal has been that for years and years and years. And I think I'm much, much, much closer to that than when I started in 1991. I took my first inner child course actually somewhere in that time, and it was absolutely life expanding. I think my only thing would be that when there is trauma, the person cannot get to joy until they process the trauma. And I just had the craziest experience this last few weeks with a client who I worked with 9 years ago, and she was leaving her husband, which she needed to do, and whatever, and I was helping her transition. So she comes back a couple of weeks ago, and I'm like, what has happened to her? She quit a job she loved with benefits. She can barely pay her bills. She returned to her abusive husband. Her son was so mad. Like, it was just this crazy. Anyway, second session, I'm just praying in between, like, Lord, I don't know what happened either. And so I said to her, because I burnt her file after 7 years, you burn them. And so I said, what happened to you in your family of origin? And she goes, I was raped by my 5-year older brother when I was 10. And of course, we didn't deal with it because she was leaving her husband. So we were dealing with the present problem. And when I questioned her that, is it possible that this is 10-year-old behavior? Her whole being resonated with that. And I mean, she has herself in a big mess, but so I think, again, there has to be a process for people that without trauma. I think it's way easier to have playfulness and joy and all that. But when there's been trauma, it's way harder to access these things, I think. And meditating is harder too, because, right? And so I think meditation would be the answer if people could get there. So I don't know if I made any sense there, but the child parts of us, there can be many, it's called multiplicity. And people that experience that, I want to say, have to work harder to do life generally. So I don't know. That's all I want to say. It's a journey for some people. And yeah, any questions?
No, oh, there might be. I want to say thank you for bringing this up, actually, because it is a very important aspect. And I listening to you sounds like one of the answers is to get help where help can be got, not go to all the Hollywood squares and just tell the story, because then it gets embedded in you. And I thank God that this person has you. And I mean, and the time, right? That you're able to put this together and then just press the button. Not that you press the button and everything disappeared, but press the button to that aha moment that she needed to start the journey that it might be. It might not be a long journey because of the realization, if she receives that, to be able to now transform and transfix to positive rather than negative. So I think this is brilliant. And I agree with you. I agree with you. People that have unresolved traumas really do work harder at life. It's really true. It's absolutely really true. And what this is going to sound like maybe a silly childhood trauma, but when I was a little girl, I'm going to say I was 6 or 7 years old. No, 7 or 8 maybe. My mother was pregnant with a baby. It was a sister, a little girl. The day that this baby was born, unresponsive at birth. So, but that day I had been at a friend's, and this friend's mother had got a new umbrella, and I opened the umbrella in the house. The grandmother went absolutely ballistic. Don't you know it's bad luck to open an umbrella? Well, I didn't know it was bad luck, and I opened it. Then I came home to a baby that had died and a family that didn't know how to deal with it, parents that didn't know how to deal with it. Do you think that I could open an umbrella in the house ever after that? So I know that was nothing like being raped at 10 years old. I'm not saying that it is, but I know how that kind of thing embeds in you as a child and carries on because it becomes part of your subconscious automatic system that you divert to. So you're absolutely spot on, and I thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate it.
I do want to say that is not a silly trauma. That's a huge trauma, because even if you were 8, your spirit knows you've lost somebody, period. So that's a huge trauma for a child. And I think the other thing is, like, cognitive behavioral therapy won't fix this inner child stuff. I think that's something that I personally have worked on for, I think we're coming up to 30 years. So I can help them because I've walked that out myself. And I think I want to say that you never know if you've arrived, because like, this woman is blindsided. She's completely blindsided by what happened, has no idea. Now she does, but initially, and of course, I don't know what's going on, because she was doing I've seen her out and about. Brandon isn't very big, and she was doing fantastic. Every time I saw her, and I'm like, so I think it's not even something like, it's not like you focus on it necessarily. Like, it's like it comes out of nowhere is what it appears like, but it's inside. And so anyways, I think that that was a big trauma for you personally.
Oh, indeed, it was it was very traumatic. I yeah, I do know that's not part of my life anymore, but I recognize the years that it was. But I'm wondering, as a professional, you said, I don't know if you ever get over, or how, I don't know how you put it, but let me ask you, if is it not possible for a person to replace, like to recognize the trauma, to seriously, you know, not just push it away into the bushes or put it in a basket, to actually come into those higher levels of consciousness where they can truly live there without the trauma of the past doing any making any problems anymore.
Absolutely, unless there's another wounded part of the person. And so I don't look for anything anymore, but occasionally things will pop up and I'm like, seriously?
Yeah.
After 30 years, I would think I should be done by now.
Sure. No,
And-
I agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree. But I like to keep my focus on the fact that of the possibility, not of the, you know, if we stay in that lower under 200, we stay in those lower, we'll stay there. And it's easy, you know, it's actually easy to stay there. A lot of people are in that group. But if you're going into the ascended life, living out of the kind of love that we're talking about tonight, that you know, really creates miracles, then no, I appreciate you so much, Cindy Lou. Thank you for sharing there. Thank you for being there. And I just appreciate your wisdom. Thank you. Gina.
I was just gonna say, we'll go back a couple of squares. When Todd was speaking, it reminds me of something that I've been working on. Not that I'm in corporate anything, but when we have to do a difficult thing or have an answer or something for a difficult situation, and I hadn't meditated that morning. Oh no, now what am I going to do? I'm not ready. I am ready.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to sort of address meditation in that it doesn't have to be some thing that you know, some ritual or whatever. It can be whatever you want. Being in a meditative, living a meditative life, to me, is bringing my inner self, my child self, to that difficult thing, because I know I'm always ready, because I know I have everything at hand, because I know that I'm supposed to be in that place in that time for a very specific reason. So I can bring my portion.
Amen. Amen.
And so there is a meditative engagement to me, because whatever it is in that difficult situation or event, or talking to somebody or doing something or facing something, I can engage my inner self there, and I have the answer. My heart leads me. And so that is more my lifestyle meditation for me. Somehow you come to a place of, I'm here right now because I'm supposed to be. And so what does that translate then to? I bring my portion, and that's going to be enough. That's going to be more than enough.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just thought I'd mention that thing about meditation and being meditative and living an engagingly meditative existence
Yeah,
can look like so varied
absolutely. Absolutely.
for everyone, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. And I like the fact that in that state you bring your portion.
Mhm.
Just know for one thing that I'm still going to push meditation to the max, getting into the
Absolutely.
silence.
No, and I didn't mean to say that should replace anything else. I'm just
No,
saying
no.
that when we find ourselves in that place,
Yeah,
go into that meditative state. I seem to do that, and it really helps because then I realize, oh, I'm ready.
yes, yes, absolutely. I'm with you 100%.
Mhm.
Thank you. Betty Boop.
Well, Cindy Lou, after you shared what you did, I thought, I guess maybe I will share. So I've been probably on an inner healing journey for maybe 20, 30 years that I started. And I remember when I first started, I felt like there was this person inside of me that was this happy, joyful, just a wonderful person, and that was the person that I wanted to be. But I had gone through so much abuse, all kinds of abuse in my life, in my childhood, when I was young, um, eh, physical, sexual, emotional, everything. And but I have found since I have gone through all this healing there has been so much transformation, and I'm certainly, not there, but I now can feel I feel that I am becoming that person. I I can see the beauty in every day. I can see the beauty in nature. I can see the other people and I can laugh. I love to watch old shows like I Love Lucy or something, and I can just sit there and I can actually just laugh. And I could never do that before because I was so afraid of everything and I was so afraid of everybody. And I even to speak on Hollywood Squares, I would never do that. And but it's been a long journey. It has been a really long journey. And I'm still working on it. I'm still doing classes where I have parts of me, but now I understand when there are parts of when I start feeling afraid or when I start feeling anxious, I talk to my parts. I say, okay, like, what is it? And it is absolutely amazing that, like once I can bring them back together, to bring them back to, the family, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, that I can feel safe and I can start, being the person that I want to be again. And yeah, so it's a journey and
Mm.
it's not easy, but I I feel that, I'm getting there and I don't know if I'll ever be there, but it's great. And it's groups like this, it's the other groups that I belong to that have really made a difference where I can share with people how I feel, because a lot of the people that my friends, they're very religious and everything has to have a scripture base to it. And a lot of it doesn't have scriptural base. And so I want to thank you for even bringing that out. And I don't even know where I'm going now, but I guess I'll finish. So anyway, that's part of my story.
Well, thank you. That's your transparency. I know when you have courage to share, two things I believe are happening. Number one, you're further along than you think. And number two, there's somebody else that needed to hear that. So you've strengthened us, encouraged us, and I just want to do the same right here. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Susan.
Yeah, my experience with the inner child, I was born with joy. I've always been a joyful person, and strangers would call me sunshine. And if there was ever a situation, Susie was sent in, you know, I was used that way. But when I was 18 or so, it was November of when I was 18, I had a spiritual experience that changed my life forever. And not that the joy left, I still had the joy, but I saw my inner child, and I saw how unhappy my inner child was, because my inner child carried the wounds of my upbringing, the traumas, the abuse, a very unhappy home. And so being in the charismatic renewal and all of that, you sought help, you took courses, and you went in. And I got to know my inner child. And I was able to minister to her, and she was healed. And I'm not saying she's fully healed, because I understand that at any time, the Lord can bring up something very deep that was really well hidden. And so, but I do want to say that I fell in love with her as part of my journey, part of my healing. I fell in love with her, and she's still a child, but she's also mature. And she is able to minister to me with a childlike wisdom. And then my sacred self, for me, has always been God. God in me. And I'm discovering I am God. And my sacred self loves my inner child. They have a connection. And it's like all these pieces I find in this journey, especially now with everything we're experiencing and learning, it's coming together more in me. And I'm finding heaven. Finding heaven in me. And so there's now this fullness of joy that I have never experienced before. Oh, makes sense. I don't know. I put that out there. So when you talk about being on the board, and feeling it, feeling the current underneath, and it's like, man, just let go into those spiritual senses and ride.
Amen. Amen. I love what you said about your inner child, your sacred child coming together. I think that was just so beautiful. So I felt what you said when you said it, and it felt like that was an amazing place to arrive. Just absolutely beautiful.
Amen. Amen.
Wow. Wow. Susan, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Rick and Karen. Did you take your hand down? Okay, this is in volleyball, this is the end of the game. Okay, that's all I know. That's all I know. How are we doing? Well, I just want to thank you all for sharing your life. You know what? Life is a good place. It's a good place. I look around and I think, aren't we blessed to have such a community where we can share and be transparent and cry and laugh and sit on a surfboard to feel what's coming up, looking for that wave and doing it together. Yahoo. Yeah. All right. Well, if everybody's cool tonight, I just want to say I love you. Don't know what time it is, but oh, you know what? May the Lord bless you and keep you. May make his face to shine on you, be gracious to you. May lift up his countenance upon you and grant you his shalom, his peace, nothing missing, nothing broken. I love you too, Greg. You guys were behind the camera there tonight. Good night, everybody.